In this video we'll be looking at Chapter 5, Section 1, Quadratic Functions. Quadratic function. A quadratic function is a function in the form y equals ax squared plus bx plus c, where a is not equal to 0. This ax squared term is called the quadratic term. This bx term is called the linear term. And this c is the constant. A quadratic function produces a parabola. A parabola is a U-shaped curve. Parabola. There is a point at the bottom when the curve is facing up. This point is called the vertex. It is a minimum value when the curve is opening upward. It is a maximum value if the curve is opening downward. There is a line, not part of the parabola, but a line that splits the parabola in half. This line is called the axis of symmetry. Alright, some important notes about a parabola. First, the Y-intercept. The Y-intercept is the Y value where the graph crosses the x-axis. It's going to be this value c here. The Y-intercept is the constant c, and it is the point 0, c. That is, if I substitute 0 in place of x, this term goes to 0, and this term would go to 0, leaving y as c. When x is 0, y is c. That is the Y-intercept. The x-intercepts can be found using the quadratic formula. And the quadratic formula is x equals negative b plus and minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, all divided by 2a. And these a's, b's, and c's are from this form. This axis of symmetry can be found using the formula x equal negative b divided by 2a. The axis of symmetry can be found with this formula. This also gives you the x value of the vertex. Also, x value of the vertex. And you can see clearly that the axis of symmetry passes through the vertex. The vertex is in the middle of the parabola, and the axis of symmetry passes directly through it. So this line, it's a vertical line, so it's an x equals equation, but this value will also be the x value of that point. If this value a, that is the coefficient of the quadratic term, will let you know which direction the parabola opens. If a is positive, then the parabola will open up. If a is negative, then the parabola will open downward. Next, vertex form. The vertex form of a quadratic is the form y equals a times the quantity x minus h squared plus k. And again, this value a cannot be 0. If so, there would be no quadratic. There would be no squared term. H and k in this circumstance will give you the vertex. All right. Let's examine some problems from our XYZ homework. All right, number 1. For the equation y equals negative x squared minus 6x minus 8, the x-intercepts are already given on the graph. Now, using the parabola tool, graph the rest of the equation. First, I want to talk about a tool we've used previously, and that is the graphing calculator through MetaCalculator. So I can go to metacalculator.com and go to the graphing calculator, and I'm simply going to enter in that quadratic equation. In fact, 5.1 almost entirely can be dealt with using this graphing calculator. We're going to learn how to do this by hand without the graphing calculator, but also with it. So I'm going to type in the equation negative x squared minus 6x minus 8. Negative y equals negative x quantity squared minus 6x minus 8. Then I can hit graph. Alright, you will see that the x-intercepts, there are x-intercepts, and there's one at negative 2 and one at negative 4. And that is exactly what we see here, one at negative 2 and one at negative 4. Now imagine our axis of symmetry. That is a line that would split that in half. I know that our vertex is going to fall on that line. Well, coming back to the picture, I see my vertex is right here. That is the point negative 3, positive 1. Since we have 3 points, we will now be able to graph our equation, our quadratic that is. Negative 3, positive 1 is here. And now I can use the parabola graphing tool to graph this. And there it is. All right. Let's take a look at another example, number 2. For number 2, it says graph the equation. Now I can certainly use the method that I just demonstrated with the graphing calculator, but I want to show a couple of different things. First, this value C, this is my y-intercept, so I know my parabola will be crossing at negative 4. So I go to my y-axis and plot a point at negative 4. All right. Now I could find my axis of symmetry. The axis of symmetry is going to be given by the formula we just saw, x equals negative b over 2a. So we have the equation y equals x squared minus 2x minus 4. Well, the axis of symmetry is given by the equation x equals negative b over 2a, where b is the coefficient of my x term and a is the coefficient of my quadratic term. So negative 2 being b, negative 2 is a positive 2. 2 times a, the coefficient of my quadratic term is 1, 2 times 1. So 2 divided by 2, that is 1. Thus, we have a vertical line going through 1. Now I can find the vertex by substituting the 1 in here. The vertex will be the point 1, comma, whatever comes out once we substitute in 1. Well, 1 squared is 1. 2 times 1 is 2. 1 minus 2 is a negative 1 minus 4 is negative 5. The vertex is at 1, negative 5, right there. So we know the axis of symmetry will pass directly through this line. Thus, there must be a reflection, that is another point right on the other side of the axis of symmetry. There must be another point there. I have my 3 points. I'm ready to graph my parabola. Clicking on the parabola graphing tool, and there it is. All right. Now I'm looking at number 4. It says graph the parabola. Do not place any dots, then fill in the blanks about the vertex and x and any intercepts. Well, here we are in vertex form. Going back and looking at our notes. Vertex form is the form a equals x minus h squared plus k. And h and k give the vertex. So h is the opposite of this in here. It says negative this value. So we'll take the opposite. K is exactly what this is out here. Thus, back to our business. Again, you could type this directly into the grapher, but we want to fully understand this. The vertex here will be given by the opposite of this value than this value. So our vertex will be at 1, negative 2. The vertex is at 1, negative 2. And the vertex is a valuable point because we know the axis of symmetry will now go through 1. So we'll have the line that splits us in half right here. Thus, if we know any point on one side, we automatically have one on the other side. This is asking for the y-intercept. All we need to do to find the y-intercept is substitute 0 in place of x. So substituting 0 here, 0 minus 1 would be negative 1. Negative 1 squared would be positive 1. Negative 2 times positive 1, negative 2. Minus 2 is negative 4. You could use your grapher to graph this. So 0, negative 4. All right. So it's asked us to graph this without the use of the any point. So I'm simply going to click on my graphing tool, plot my vertex at 1, negative 2, and now move the parabola until it crosses through the point 0, negative 4. And there it is. We can see that this parabola is opening downward, and we knew that originally because we have this value here that is the a value, and it is negative. All right. It says for the following equation, find the coordinates of the vertex and indicate whether the vertex is a highest point or a lowest point. Okay, we have the equation y equals 24 plus 2x minus x squared. Again, we could graph this and find the vertex very readily. The first thing I note is my value of a here is negative 1. Since a is negative 1, I know the parabola will open downward. This parabola is going to open downward. So my vertex, this is the vertex. It is a maximum value in this case, max. That is, this vertex is the highest point on the parabola. It has the greatest y value. Alright, to find my vertex, I'm going to use this formula that gives me the axis of symmetry. X equals negative b divided by 2a. In this case, b is 2, so negative 2. 2 times a, where a is negative 1. 2 times negative 1, that's negative 2. Negative 2 divided by negative 2 is positive 1. So my vertex will be at, vertex is going to be at 1, substituting 1 in here. 2 times 1 is 2. 24 plus 2 is 26. Minus 1 squared is 1. So 26 minus 1 is 25. Our vertex is at 125, and it's going to be a maximum because our parabola is opening downward. $125. It is the highest point. I will submit. All right. And I'm going to show how we could also find this using our grapher. We're graphing the equation y equals 24 plus 2x minus, and you can simply hit x squared here. All right, graph. And here you can see that it is opening down, as we noticed, but we can't quite see the vertex. Well, how we can do that is to change our y scale. I want y to be, the maximum y to be 30. Let's make the minimum y here negative 30. Now we can see our graph, and you can see the vertex right there. It's at the point 125. We could look at the table and verify that. When x is 1, y is 25. All right, with that information, you should be very successful on 5.1.